It's really a thrill to introduce you to some of the really outstanding artists who are part of our exhibition and, of course, have been part of MAD for so many years. They today will include Ray Alma, Scott Bricher, Emily Flake, and Keith Knight. And Steve Brodner, who you met earlier in the day, has very kindly agreed to, as MAD exhibition co-curator, to chair this panel and talk with his fellow illustrators. So with that, I'm going to invite Steve to introduce our artists and we can get started.
Okay, I want to thank you, Stephanie, for not only for this, but for making this show possible. It was a dream come true for those of us who worked for MAD and for those of us who for whom MAD became kind of a lifeline to the real world in a world of nonsense by training the satiric eye on things that needed to be talked about. It's an especially great gift to us. And I'm sorry it's closing. For those of you who are planning to see it, you have a week to go. What day does it end, Stephanie? Are you gone? All right.
I'm here.
What's the last day of the
The last
show?
day is actually a week from tomorrow. So October 27th is the last day. And
Okay.
we are going to miss this show. Believe me, our galleries have been absolutely mobbed. So it's been exciting to see how many people have come to enjoy it.
Well, the big secret for this show being as good as it is all of you guys, these people who were keys into the creative process and the ability for us to access the art. And very importantly, those who are on the board of directors of this show to help keep us centered and smart all the way. And you did. And it's very much a group effort. We are going to introduce our panel. I think we first have first up will be Ray Alma. So Ray has got a few slides to show. Without too much further ado, let's introduce Ray, and we will have questions at the end of all of the presentations. But first up is Ray. Ray Alma is an illustrator and a caricaturist and a storyboard artist who's created Art for Mad and many other magazines and newspapers and books and television. In addition to his commercial projects, he is the director of the Inkwell Foundation, which is a cadre of cartoonists who travel to pediatric hospitals to draw for children. They are doing the work of the angels. I know some of these people. I've attended a couple of their sessions, and wow, bless them all. In 2010, Ray began volunteering for the USO. He's the Bob Hope of creating.
You could see me in a bikini doing a go-go for the troops.
I'm the Jerry Colonna of illustration. Creating art at the Veterans Hospitals, American troops at home and abroad. So Ray, you've got, I've seen your slideshow, it's marvelous. But I want everybody to understand we can't be here all day. So I'm gonna, when we're about 15 minutes in, I'm gonna say hi, how you doing? Okay. So give it around 15 to 17, something like that. And
Okay.
And share the screen and take it away, Ray Alma.
Yeah, so I wanted to start with what for me was the influences of becoming a Mad artist. So this this early issue of Mad belonged to my mother, and she gave it to me when I was about 4 years old, and it terrified me. I'm gonna zoom in here. So the cover gag was they reprinted this Thomas Nast cartoon, and it just to a 4-year-old to see these human and bird hybrids and the lightning and the little we'll go in a little closer here where you could see the skeletons, and it's just it was it, it, I to a 4-year-old it was so scary. But I somehow got past the cover, and I remember opening it up, and even though I couldn't read at this point, just like the pictures, and it was just so like it drew me in to this early Mad that terrified me and excited me. I knew that the art I was looking at, even as a 4-year-old, was somehow special, and this is Wally Wood, Jack Davis, all of those early guys that just was so thank you to my mom, Bubbles. She hates being called that, and she's going to see this later, so I'm sorry, but people need to know that your nickname is Bubbles. So huge influence, and thanks to my mother. And this next slide, this is my mother's stepfather, Jaime Gottlieb, who so my parents were divorced when I was young. So basically, Grandpa Jaime was my male role model growing up, and another huge influence in terms of not taking. So this is him. He was a staff sergeant in the Army, and this is him during World War II. So just that attitude of not taking life too seriously and a desire to make people laugh was something kind of special. So thank you also, Grandpa Jaime. So I went to the School of Visual Arts, cartooning major, studied under Harvey Kurtzman, Will Eisner, Joe Orlando. So I had a good setup to eventually end up working in Mad, which is kind of what I always wanted to do. And in 1996, Joe Orlando called me up, and he said, "We have a job for you." So this was the first piece I had done for Mad in '96, and he's like, he said it was a good news, bad news situation. He's like, good news is we have a piece for you for Mad. It's 5 pages. The bad news is usually like a 5-page piece, the artist would get about 5 weeks to work on it, but we need it in 3. Can you do it? And I'm like, well, I wasn't going to say no. So I made the deadline, but there were production problems where I hadn't left enough room for some of the word balloons. I understood that the production department was like cursing my name when they had to like put this whole piece together. So there was like a 3-year period between my first piece and my next pieces that I started working then basically regularly in '99. By that point, Sam Viviano was now art director. Sam also another teacher who I owe a ton to, just like learning from him in school. And then also I think he advocated for me to like to give to Matt to say, yeah, let's give him another chance. So they did. So in 1999, I started doing stuff, leaving enough room for the word balloons, and things went much smoother. And I thought it was kind of interesting where I think I was maybe in my late 30s, early 40s, but I was still one of the youngest artists. So Matt kept giving me stuff that was kind of related to pop culture. I was like the young guy. He could we'll give him music related things. So I think that's even why they approached me for this kind of like this real solid '90s Lollapalooza parody. So I did a few pieces and things were going pretty good. The next thing I want to show is this was a movie parody for a movie called Detroit Rock City, and it was produced by Gene Simmons, and it's not a great movie, but it's these stoners in the '70s who were trying to get tickets to a Kiss concert. So, and apparently Gene's like a big fan of Mad Magazine. He's very excited about everything getting into Mad. So I think he gave the magazine a lot of reference to work from, and like an early VHS copy of the movie before it was released. So I had a ton of reference to work from, and I'm not a huge Kiss fan, but I know who Gene Simmons is, and this was fun to do. I think this is the first time I ever did like a movie parody. So some of the process, this was my early rough sketch that I would send in. These are some of my sketches trying to work out the likeness and some of the more the details. Working on tracing paper, very old school. And then this was the final finished piece that got printed. I was pretty happy with the way it came out, and this was still like man was still doing black and white. So there's a story attached to this whole piece where previously I had sold some Mad original art to one of the actors. I did a piece for there was a show called Sports Night, and one of the actors from Sports Night contacted me. I want to buy the original. So and I didn't know what to charge. So I just whatever the page rate I was getting paid, I decided to charge. And he's like, that's fine, that's great. So I'm like, okay, that's my base, what I'm gonna charge to sell the art. So I come home and there's a call on my answering machine from Gene Simmons. And he was very funny on the he's like, Ray, this is Gene Simmons. I want to buy your art from the Mad piece. Maybe we could make a deal. I'll sell you my sister or my goat. And I'm like, okay, Gene Simmons is pretty funny. He wants to buy the art. Rich guy. So I call him back. And we start talking, and he's like, oh yeah, I really like how the piece came out. This is great. So let's do it. Let's make the sale. Sell me the art. I'm like, all right, well, I figured out it was like a 5-page piece. I figured out the rate, and it came out to a couple of $1,000s. So I told him the price, and there was silence on the phone. And he goes, no, and I'm going to tell you why. And he starts going on about how Marvel Comics did a Kiss comic in the 70s, and he's like, those artists pretty much gave me the art, because I'm Gene Simmons. This is ridiculous. He's like, I'm not gonna and I was like, well, okay, I could go down to this. He's like, no, that's crazy. He's like, I'm not paying that. That's too much. This is Gene Simmons. He's got rock star money, and I don't remember even how low I got, but I was like, well, I'm not gonna sell you the art. I'm sorry. And he was pissed off, and so I never ended up selling him the art. And to this day, I keep meaning to sell it on eBay just because I want him to maybe scroll across it one day and see it go for some good money. So thank you, Gene Simmons. So the next one I got is
You should have told him that he was wonderful in Guys and Dolls.
I'm old enough to get that joke, Steve.
I had a crush on her. Anyway, keep going.
Oh, she was cute. So yeah, and this is another example of 90s era pop culture. Let's give it to Ray Alma. And this was a lot of fun. The TRL show from MTV. I lived in New York, so I could walk over to where the studios filmed, in Times Square, and I took some reference photos of some of the buildings in the background that you would see out the window. And I went out of my way to try to come up with little gags for each of the store names. So this was my sketch, and then this was the final printed piece. And it's I really started to embrace kind of the gray tone work that Mad was doing at the time. That was a lot of fun. Okay, so now this is 2001. This is Sam's doodle that he sent me. This is for the splash page for the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes remake. And can I tell you how freaking excited I was to get this assignment? I mean, I think Sam mentions in this, and I think this is true when I heard that they were going to do this movie. I think I kind of burst into the office and it's like, you guys are going to do Planet of the Apes. I have to draw it. I am a huge Planet of the Apes fan. You got if I could turn the camera around to see the wall that I'm facing right now is just filled with Planet of the Apes memorabilia. It's just like the original movies. Oh my God. So unfortunately, I didn't know that this movie was going to suck, the Tim Burton version, but it didn't, it kind of didn't matter because I got to draw Planet of the Apes for Mad. So these are some of the work in progress. So this was Sam's rough about how the splash page should kind of be laid out. This was my early doodles, I think, as I was taking notes from talking with Sam, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with laying out the splash page. And then these are my tight pencils for the splash page. And often, like, Mad would give you like a this printout that had all the word balloons all set up. So I think because I was so shell shocked from the first debacle with the blah blah palooza, that I ended up doing my pencils on the layout, like actual size, to kind of make sure everything was going to fit and there was enough room for the art versus the word balloons. Um, so this was pretty much drawn actual size. Um, and again, like, I think I had seen the movie by this point. It had come out, and it took a while to realize how bad it was going to be, but still, it was Planet of the Apes. So this was the splash page. It was a 6-page piece. So on the last page, um, they had a layout that, um, I thought about and was thinking, can we do this a little different? And this didn't happen often because they were very specific when they'd have everything laid out, word balloons on the top, art on the bottom, and it would be boom, 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 boom. But I saw this as an opportunity to maybe change up the layout a little bit. So I was very nervous about even suggesting it. So this is the fax I sent to Sam, asking if we could maybe do this, where we could combine the panels from the word balloons from panel 2 into panel 3, so that I could do more of a bigger layout of this battle that takes place at the end of the movie. Um, and they agreed, and I was very excited because now it was like it felt more like sequential art to me. These are my rough pencils for that last page, um, and then these are my tighter pencils. Again, but back in the days when you would fax things in before you would email to get approval, and then this was the final printed page. And again, I was very happy. And the weird thing about this too was that, I remember finishing the art on the very last page, at like 5 in the morning on the day it was due. Like, I had made the deadline and I was exhausted, and like the sun was coming up, I could hear birds singing, like, but I had gotten it done. And just that sense of fulfillment of like something you love as a fan, Planet of the Apes and Mad Magazine kind of combined, for me, it was just, to me, it was like, this was kind of like the highlight. And I was so excited for the issue to come out. And this was the issue that was coming out when 9/11 happened. And Mad had a cover by John Caldwell that like unintentionally featured like a corpse in the street. It was like somebody who had died during the marathon, and they were like kind of so it was a corpse in the New York City street covered. So Mad had to like quickly find another cover. So the thrill I had of like drawing Planet of the Apes and Mad Magazine was quickly muted by tragic events happening in the city. Uh, Forgot what year this was, but this was for the movie Panic Room. So this is Sam's doodle that I loved. Like, it was a great continuation of being Sam's student, where um, he would guide you, and like these quick little doodles were just so helpful. So this was like, I had an idea based off of this, where with the sketch, where I thought maybe we could do like a little MC Escher thing in the up on the top. I had asked about like if it was going to be okay if there was enough room with the title, and there was. So they were able. So this was the final uh, of that page. And it was weird too. Like, Mad was starting to do color, but they would still eventually go back to black and white. They would ping pong. Um, I was happy to do both. It was also not a great movie, but I'm happy with how this movie parody came out. Now, and this next one was, I was pitching cover ideas. So like, I really wanted to do a cover at some point. Um, so I forgot what the actual image art I had. Wasn't this, but I had design the logo like this with the made of the webbing. And they were like, you know, no, we're not gonna give you the cover. We're not gonna go with this gag. But they did. Apparently, they liked the my logo design, and they gave me writing credit for the cover, which I was so touched by. They totally didn't have to do that, but and then it was like,
This never ran, this art?
it did. No, this art ran. This is the actual cover.
It's
This is
beautiful.
I couldn't find my doodle that I had sent them.
Ray, this is gorgeous. And very hard to turn to do Newman.
No, this is what I think I had something with like which I think Mad eventually did with one of the later Spider-Man cards. I think I had something with like the webbing coming out of his butt. It's like my take on what Spider-Man would be doing. I think I had it was like Alfred Spider-Man, I think webbing coming out of his ass, but it was they used my Mad logo design of the Mad coming out with the webbing. And I don't know who wrote the actual thing with him with the multiple limbs, but it was, and then it's like more Drucker illustrated.
It's a Drucker.
This is a Drucker.
I see.
Yeah. And
I was praising you for a Drucker piece.
I will take it. I
you should have just shut up, you know. Keep going.
So now this is Drew Friedman. This also isn't me, but I want to show this as a prelude to my next story of a celebrity encounter. So this was the issue that had come out October 02. So I'm in my neighborhood and there's this really cheesy seafood restaurant right down the block. And I'm walking and I see there's a big crowd. And I'm like, what's going on? So someone's like, they're shooting The Sopranos in the restaurant over there. So I go over and I see that, sure enough, the whole cast, well, the male characters, I don't think any of the women were there. The male characters are there and they're taking a break. And Gandolfini is outside this restaurant and he's signing autographs. He's like talking to people. So I know Mad loves to have photos of celebrities holding up the magazines. And I was 2 blocks, my apartment was 2 blocks away. I ran home and I got the issue. And I came back and I waited online and I was like the last person. And I showed it to Gandolfini. I handed it to him. And I said to him, you know, hi, I'm Ray Alma. I'm an artist for Mad Magazine. You know, you were on this cover and we wanted to know if we could take a photo to publish in the magazine. And he thought I said I drew the cover. So he looked at it and he was kind of quiet, and then he rolled it up and he smacked me on the head with it, and he's like, why'd you make me so effing fat? And then he left. He was just like, he wasn't really angry, but it was like, I was able to tell people after that I was whacked by Tony Soprano.
Ray, I think just give us another couple of minutes, okay?
Okay. So, and then just a quick follow-up was that he didn't give me the magazine back. He kept it. I saw him go into the back and he was showing the rest of the cast. I think the interior was a Tom Richmond. We'll come ahead a few years. The Friends is ending, so I got to do this Friend piece. Again, this is Sam's thing. These are my rough sketches, tight sketches, my final art. So one of the producers of Friends was a huge Mad fan. So he reached out and he's like, can I buy the artwork? Okay, yes. And he paid. And then he's like, you know, if you're ever in California, why don't you come to one of the tapings of one of the last episodes? So I'm like, okay. So my wife and I went, and the guy, when we met the Todd Stevens, I think his name was, and he had us, he's like, oh, hang back after the taping's over. So we got to go onto the set, and we got to sit on the couch, and I insisted that they take a picture of me reading Mad on Monica's toilet. And then the producer wanted to do the same picture. And then my wife and I got to sit in the kitchen. We were trying to meet the cast, but they left. But at the time, Courtney Cox was married to David Arquette, and he was waiting around for her. And he came over and he's like, oh, who are you? And I was like, oh, I'm an artist for Mad Magazine. And he was excited. He's like, oh my God. So he asked for this picture. So that's us with David Arquette. Mad started to do covers we didn't use, were like these little interior things. little controversial, but I was happy with how the painting came out on this. Sam's doodle for the Troy movie. Again, this is covers we didn't use. My tight sketch and my finished art. Another cover we didn't use. It was always
I love this.
exciting to draw.
That would have been one of the greatest covers of all time.
I can understand why they. I teach at SVA. I sometimes show this to my students, and they get very disgusted. So, and this is like, I know Scott's on this thing, so I found this is from the Mad Christmas Party, I think in '06. Mad used to have nice Christmas parties at the Society of Illustrators. Next to Scott, Scott's on the left. Tim Shamey and Herman Mejia, also great artists. And then this is like, so the piece that's hanging in the Rockwell Museum was Alfred stuck in a bear trap. So this was what they sent me, like written by Mike Gallagher, the doodle. This was me trying to do some reference poses. Couldn't quite get my leg up as high. So this was my first rough. And then they were like, no, we want him actually chomping on it. So I had to reposition a little bit. And then the final art, this is the piece that's hanging in the museum.
Ray, do one more.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring this full circle. The first piece I did for Mad, which I realized recently, we have this cover, this Blah Blah Palooza, and then I realized I had put Beavis and Butthead in, and that was me. That was the chicken fat thing that I added. But what I basically do today is storyboards for Beavis and Butthead. So I work on the story. So it's just, I was kind of amazed that I'm like, oh my God, this is what the finished animated art looked like for Beavis and Butthead. So
cool.
Thank you.
All right. Emily is a cartoonist, an illustrator. Works appeared in the New Yorker, New York Times, Time, many other publications. Her weekly comic strip called Lulu 8-Ball has appeared in numerous alternative news weeklies since 2002. She also performs as a stand-up cartoonist, something I'd love to see, and is the proprietor of St. Nell's Humor Writing Residency in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. She's was an advisor to on our panel to the Mad Show. Please welcome Emily. Emily, take it away.
I started doing cartoons for Mad, I want to say in like the mid 2000s. I had, as you mentioned, a strip that ran in a bunch of alt weeklies called Lulu 8-Ball, and I was also doing these performance things where I would show funny drawings and then do bits, kind of like a hybrid of cartooning and stand up. I did one of those at the Magnet Theater in New York, and Dave Corrado was in the audience, and he said, "Hey, do you ever submit to Mad?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "Yeah, you should do that." So I started submitting some gag cartoons roughly the same time that I started submitting to the New Yorker. So I was really like trying to hit both the the high and low of the cultural spectrum there. So this one, the caption here is, "That was when I sat on your shoulder and made you make terrible life decisions." This is a man walking with the devil on the beach. Let me just advance this. Okay. "I'm sorry, but copying and pasting all these different fonts takes time. Look, I know I'm your sponsor, but if you keep calling while the game is on, I'm just going to let you drink. And a little fork is for stabbing fellas in the eyes."
I always wondered about that.
This is probably my favorite one that I've done for Mad Magazine. Obviously, this is a man about to hang himself, and his dog is very excited because he thinks he's going to get to go for a walk. So this ran in Mad, and then somebody got a tattoo of it and sent the picture into Mad Magazine. So that ended up in the front of the book. And that was both extremely validating and made me very worried about the young man who got this as a tattoo.
It feels a little more lampoon than Mad to me.
It does feel a little bit more lampoon than Mad, and I was kind of surprised they let me get away with this, actually.
Yeah.
Mad Magazine was a very early influence on me, obviously, but so was a National Lampoon. There were a few issues of that lying around my house when I was a kid, and I had a very, typically under supervised late 70s and early 80s upbringing. So like I basically just injected as much National Lampoon into my eyeballs as possible, and didn't really realize until years later that I was kind of subconsciously ripping off Sherry Flanagan and in like like the very, very poor man Sherry Flanagan. So this is one that I did for the New Yorker that like I feel like sort of shares some DNA with something that I would have pitched to Mad. But the caption here is, "I'm sorry guys, I guess at our age truth or dare is a little too fraught." The caption here is, "Sweetheart, that kind of language is completely inconsistent with our family branding." So this is probably my most well-received New Yorker cartoon. This is "Son, if you can't say something nice, say something clever but devastating." This makes the rounds every once in a while. People really seem to like this one. Every time it pops up on the internet, I just want to redraw it very badly. That little boy has an absurdly small head. That slide is just a lawsuit waiting to happen. Yeah, if I am the band warrant, this cartoon is my cherry pie. And the caption here is, "Does this mean we have to scrape the daddy decal off the minivan?" This cartoon lives in sort of the Venn diagram between humor and pathos that I most enjoy living in. That's sort of like the that's sort of the idea behind the Walkies cartoon as well. So I wanted to give an example of Lulu 8-Ball, since like basically I think without Mad I never would have started Lulu 8-Ball, and if I hadn't done Lulu 8-Ball then I never would have gotten into Mad. So it all sort of everything followed itself. So this is new from Edible Arrangements. "The Fancy Pantsy Belgian chocolate dipped ortolan comes in a bed of $100 bills garnished with caviar." "The Incipient Heart Attack chocolate robe donuts and foie gras nuggets on a bed of bacon dusted lightly with cocaine." "The Adventurous Soul durian fruit baptized in carob on a thick bed of cholera germs." And "The Ungrateful Bitch basic model slathered in the recipient snobbery." God, these things are so tacky. I mean, I guess I could eat the kale garnish. I wrote this because my mother sent me an edible arrangement when I told her I was pregnant, and I really, really, I'm like, these things are gross. I am the ungrateful bitch. It's me. Oh, and this one is probably one of my favorite Lulu 8-Balls I've ever done. This is "Poor Pinocchio. The other kids won't let him live down his past as a wooden toy. Hey, Peanut, you get a hard on looking at a tree? I think it's creepy you weren't always human. Nose still grows whenever he lies, despite being made of flesh. I have lots and lots of friends. Ow! The Blue Fairy doesn't do twofers. One per family, kid. Sorry. What did you make that out of anyway? Cardboard? And crickets don't live nearly so long as little boys do. Jiminy? Jiminy, come on, quit fooling.
Thank you, Emily. That was wonderful. Scott Bricher is a prolific and versatile artist and musician who created art for Mad on a wide variety of subjects, both traditional and digital media, from 98 to 2019. Born in Columbus, Ohio, studied at Parsons here in New York and the Art Students League, where he built freelance careers as designer, illustrator, painter, and concept artist. His clients have included Sesame Street Magazine, Ghostwriter, and 3-to-1 Contact Magazine, and many others. Scott, welcome. And do you have, can you share your screen and show some?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give you a quick overview of all the things I did. First, I just want to thank Stephanie and the Norman Rockwell Museum for including me in the exhibition. It's a real honor, and to be part of this symposium, it's been really great. I was a huge fan of Mad, and so much so when I was like 13 or 14, I did a mural on the basement wall. I painted each of the characters and each of the artists and their signatures and everything. So I was really well acquainted with everybody. from a young age. So years later, when my friend Nadina Simon got a job as assistant art director at MAD, I was thrilled. I gotten to know Nadina. I'd illustrated for her at Children's Television Workshop and Popular Science and other magazines that she worked at. So when she got there, she lobbied really hard for me to get into the magazine. It didn't happen right away, but eventually it did. And so I did a test. And so the first job I did for him was in '98. I did this South Park thing. Now, I was working digitally at the time and they weren't. So I had to do things traditionally, which was fine. At this point, I was a big fan of Bob Clark and that sort of advertising thing that he did, but I also loved his wash drawings, and I loved the wash drawings of Wally Wood. So this is me sort of channeling that kind of vibe. So I think my third job for Matt, I did a 8-page color insert to the magazine. It was still black and white, and this was a new thing that happened, was the color stuff. And so it was a big honor to do an 8-pager. And this one I'm kind of channeling a little bit of the I don't know, the Will Elder, Annie Fanny kind of look. And pretty highbrow stuff there with Santa on the toilet. So a little bit after that, they called me in and they wanted me to do a back cover. So they want, and Nick was really clear. We want this to be realistic. Really, can you paint realistic? So I brought in, other paintings, my oil paintings and my fine art work and all that. And I'm showing it to him and I'm convincing, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And we want it to be photographic. It's got to be very realistic. So I was working digitally at the time. So my friend had posed for me for Charlton Heston there. So I'm putting it all together in Photoshop to paint it. And I kind of realized, oh, wait, this is kind of what they really want. They want it to be as realistic as possible. So, I mean, I had a rougher version of this, but I showed it to everybody. And John was like, I didn't know we could do that. It's kind of exactly what they wanted. So there we go. That set me off on a little different course. I started to do more, I brought digital work into the magazine, which was a new thing, but I also brought in this photo manipulation stuff, which.
So this is this kind of a collage piece?
Definitely. It's a photo. Yeah, it's photo manipulation. Things wherever photographs are brought together, then everything's repainted to sort of fit together. So yes, it's essentially a collage, but it's all been, manipulated in Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah. My dad's was a deer hunter. He liked this piece.
Maybe not for the same reasons the editors wanted.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't use a semi-automatic weapon though, but this was another color insert for the magazine. I did where there were a few artists working on it, but I did all these character pieces, and it was a Warner Brothers. Well, actually, that Hallmark Christmas ornament thing I showed you was written by Scott Mako, and I did a lot of pieces that he wrote over the years, a lot of catalogs and restaurant pieces and things like that. And he wrote this one as well. And so in the lower left there, we've got the Ducktown Massacre, and not to get even more morbid, but I painted this coffin, and they had this guy who was dying called up the magazine, and he wanted to buy this thing because he thought it was real. Somebody had to break it to him.
Oh, God.
This is the cover I did for Y2K. Peter Cooper wrote this, and I painted it digitally, but I really approached it the same way I would a traditional painting. So if you zoomed in on it or whatever, it would look kind of painterly. Although then after I painted it, I pixelated it to make it, for the gag. I had to make sure that the tooth lined up with the pixel. And I do a lot of advertising work, so I was able to bring that in, and that goes back to my love of like Bob Clark and earlier when they would show that Bob Clark choking poster and whatever. So I love that these advertising guys could really bring their chops and also play it very straight. So I did a lot of that over the years. So Benson and Hedges did all these ads where they had this cigarette doing things, and so we had them dead. This was This was written by the great Frank Jacobs. To me, this felt very classic, like the stuff that I grew up seeing. It's an evergreen kind of piece, and just fun to do these advertising characters that had died and how and why. Nice and silly. And so one of the things I would do, I had a lot of jobs where I'd use a lot of different styles within the same job and bring in graphic design and whatever. So the new $20 bill had come out. So I did a whole bunch of $20 bills, different styles. I've got like the children's Pat the Money, and this was a Calvin Klein fragrance. I can't remember what it was called, but there's like a tattoo artist. I looked up, this was pet. I guess tattoos. I guess they were getting popular, but they weren't that popular. So these are kind of old school tattoos. For the 400th issue, they did The Untold Story of Mad. Desmond Devlin wrote it, and we came up with these unpublished covers. And so this was fun to go through and sort of paint each era in the style of the artist of that time. It's sort of like the ones that Ray was showing earlier. They ran small, but I got the distinct honor of painting Elvis dead on the toilet.
That's actually a masterpiece, I think.
There you go. I'll take it.
Wow.
So here's more.
Like Mad was always like scenes we'd like to see.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I got to imagine, and I put Marilyn up in the corner there because I figured, why not give him a little 50s there.
Yeah.
So, I've got, this is more ad stuff that I did. This was Ari Kaplan wrote this one. Once again, more graphic design. I wasn't working 3D modeling yet. This was all done in Photoshop, but later on I started to bring 3D modeling in. Once again, I do a lot of advertising, so I got to bring those chops in. Now, around 2001, 2002, I started doing weekly work for the MAD website, and this was it's a lot of work. I would get the job on Friday morning from Greg Lightman, who wrote everything. And by Friday afternoon, I'd had to get the sketches approved. And then over the weekend, I would do all the artwork and deliver it on Monday morning. And most of the stuff was done in Flash. It was interactive. There were multi gags, multi states, just lots and lots of pieces that had to come together over the weekend. But it was great because I got to do a lot of different styles. And, it was just, you didn't have time to think. And there was a spy versus spy game that Lifesavers sponsored that I did all the artwork for. They put that on a disc, and that was included with some magazines. So that was kind of a fun thing to be able to draw the spies. Occasionally, the artwork would make it from the website into the magazine. I would rework it, and because they were usually multi-states and whatever, like the original of this had, his eyes would light up, there'd be buzzing and things would pop up and whatever. So I'd rework some of these and they would make it into the magazine. Sometimes they were reprinted in special issues, just the black and white versions. So these were kind of fun to do when they made it across the line, kind of. This was kind of one of those evergreen kind of things that felt like the kind of things that I grew up seeing, but with kind of like a Bob Clark kind of graphic design kind of solution to this. This was kind of a popular cover. Everyone loves the Sgt. Pepper cover, so I got to do it, and it was fun because back then it was harder to find copyright things that we could use on the cover. So we had to cycle through a lot of imagery to find stuff that would really work. And they made a legend that went on the inside of the magazine, so you could pick out who everybody was. And I think there was a shot of Sharon Osbourne, who's in the middle there, was holding up an issue. They ran that inside on a later issue. This got a lot of coverage. This was a center spread poster, and Ari Kaplan wrote this one as well. And this got reposted a lot and saw on a lot of bulletin boards, where you went. And I mean, you've seen a lot of this kind of thing now, but back then it was kind of fresh, this kind of a solution to thing. And this is another style I would do. I would do like these, did some computer game looking things. So these were all drawn and painted, but they were kind of done in a style that kind of looked like blocky, saturated computer animation kind of stuff. And I mean, I did so many Grand Theft. There was Grand Theft. We did some of these for the website. Grand Theft Amish, Grand Theft Santa. You know, a lot of Grand Theft stuff. This piece is in the exhibition. This was an oil piece done in oil. Most of the other previous stuff was all digital except for the first couple. I'd done something else for this issue, and they made it a last minute addition to the issue and decided they wanted to do this center spread and a poster. So by the time I got the sketches approved and all that, I pretty much had to paint it over the weekend and deliver it on Monday wet. But that was a lot of fun, you know, just trying to make it look as much like the original as I could, with the funky chairs and some of those weird looking dog faces. At a certain point, I started to take on a little bit of Irving Schild's territory of doing photography, you know, incorporating that into some of the stuff. As the magazine tended to, the stuff I was doing just got more and more realistic. So this was written by one of the editors, Joe Ray Alma. It was a really funny piece, The Deities and Food. And so, you know, seeing them small, but they really had to be just on that edge of seeing what was there. But I love the Ganesh and the Baba Ganoush, and everybody loves the 12 Apostles and the chicken nuggets. This is another food piece. I think this is a Scott Mako piece. I baked so many pizzas and I had them all over the house, and I was photographing them, and you know, the rhombus pizza and all that. You know, those were real things that I made. And on this kind of a job, I would do the logo up in the corner and that stuff as well. There's another food thing. I did a thing, the bacon bed instead of the bacon bowl. And this is my buddy Mark, who posed for the Charlton Heston. This piece got rerun recently because of, you know, the Barbie movie, but this was written by Duck Edwing. And Duck, you know, was a very funny guy. And a few years earlier, Nick Meglin hooked he and I up together, and we were working on a Little Annie Fanny reboot, and which was great fun. He would call up and just be hilarious, and it was a lot of fun to draw and paint Annie Fanny. I did some gouache paintings and stuff. It didn't go anywhere, but it was a lot of fun. I got a kind of a funny story on this piece. Is my daughter had a big Barbie collection, and I pulled it out of the basement, and I had them scattered all over the studio floor, trying to cast them and which one went for which piece and how I was going to make this work. And we had this contractor doing some work around the house, and he came in to talk to me, and I had to, you know, tell him, you know, this was my job. I had to play with these dolls. So this is the kind of job that I love doing. Just lots and lots of different styles, you know, aping very specific things. Even though they ran tiny, it was a lot of fun just to kind of just make a variety of things. And I love doing that kind of thing. As I said before, I did a lot of catalogs and menu and food things that were many small parts. A lot of them were written by Scott Mako. This one, I think, a lot of them were written by Jeff Cruz. Very funny stuff. Staples didn't like this one. I think they stopped selling the magazine after they saw it. But I'd rope in friends and family, members of my band, all, you know, whoever could get to just pose for all these things. Many of them. And a lot of this stuff was 3D modeled, you know, some photography, you know, obviously with the people and painting, making it all work together. Just many parts to these things. And everything started with drawings. I would get, you know, this blank layout, and then I would sketch everything in. Then, you know, make all the 3D model, all the pieces, photograph, find models, whatever. And Doug Thompson in the art department was always very happy because I made everything fit. He could just pop it right in at the last minute. So he was appreciative of that. This is another kind of graphic design solution, you know, where, you know, photographing things, 3D modeling things. I just love trying to play it as straight as I could and using all the, you know, ad skills that I could to make it look really slick.
If you retool that for Trump, we'll get it on Nation Up Art.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. More advertising kind of stuff, and also just, having to ape the logos as well. I by the end, I would do it all, just do the logos and everything, so I did a lot of this kind of stuff. This was Sarah Palin's Clueless board game. Richard Williams did the box cover for this that ran with it, and I just had a lot of fun making it look as much as I could like the original game, and really digging in and doing that dramatic perspective, and you've got the view to Russia down at the bottom, and just lovingly painting all these little things, my love of old board games and whatever.
Scott, can we just do one or two more?
Yeah, just two more. Yeah. So these are just some small things that ran that is fun to see them big. This was like a Jabba the Hutt dance party. I did a bunch of movie mashups, combining styles of posters. This is Mall Cops, video game. And this is a friend of mine, Judy, who this one makes me laugh every time I see it. But anyway, that's kind of what I did over the years.
It's a great one to end on. Thank you, Scott. Wonderful. Bravo.
Thank you.
Keith Knight is the creator of the weekly comic strip, The K Chronicles, weekly single panel comic, Think, Inc.
Think.
Okay.
Yeah.
The daily strip, The Nightlife, in a style and wit reminiscent of Mad, Knight addresses serious social political issues while incorporating signature humor. Woke TV series, partially based on Knight's life, debuted on Hulu streaming service in 2020. The second season became available in April 2022. He was an advisor to our group and a very intelligent and helpful advisor indeed. So take it away, Keith.
Yeah. Again, not to be redundant, but just thank you for inviting me to be a part of all this. It's an amazing, I can tell that this exhibition is a huge success because I get these random texts from people saying, "Hey, I'm at the Norman Rockwell Museum, and they got your stuff up." And so like random like people from college, people from Los Angeles that I knew, like so it's been a huge success and just an honor to be on the wall with all these folks. Um, you know, I think similar to Emily, like Mad was just one of those things that just was just a seminal part of my life as a kid. It was the first, I felt like dirty book that I got like when I was a kid. Hey, look at this magazine. And just I remember the day I got the email to be a part of Mad Magazine. And I remember it fondly because I was in Paris and, I was supposed to be, taking in Paris and, and I got this email and all I could talk about was, oh my goodness, like Mad Magazine contacted me. Mad Magazine. My wife's like, can we just enjoy Paris? No, I got to figure out what I'm going to do for Mad Magazine. The very first thing I ever sold, piece I ever sold was my own version of Mad Magazine. It was called Kooky Magazine, and and I didn't even have a place to make copies of it, so I had to every time I sold a copy, I'd have to redraw it and then sell it again. So there's 3 or 4 copies of Kooky Magazine out there. Anyway, I'm embarrassed to say that like I couldn't find any of the pieces I did, like the finished pieces I did for Mad, but I'm just gonna show you some of my comics and and you could see the influence of Mad. So I'm just gonna jump right into it. Beep.
And we do have a couple of your Mad pieces in there, so you'll be
Okay.
able to, yeah.
Excellent.
show.
All right. Since tying the knot a year and a half ago, a lot of readers have been asking me this question. Has this once macho he-master gone all soft now that I'm a married man? Beep. The answer is yes, I've gone all soft and supple. Beep. Beep. It's true. The best thing about getting hitched is being able to use all your wife's girly products in the bathroom. Stuff I wouldn't be caught dead buying in public. Okay, let's see. We've got some anti-crab ointment, Anal wart remover in a peach Melba loofah scrub. Shh, not so loud with the loofah scrub. Beep. That's right, people. No more scrubbing the nether regions with lava soap for me. We've got rosemary and aloe vera eucalyptus leaves infused with hibiscus shampoo, organic sea kelp and lamb semen exfoliating wash, colloidal oatmeal, and placenta enema. Beep. Honestly, y'all, using this stuff does make a difference. A lot of folks have been noticing. Gee, your skin feels terrific. So,
Bravo.
the layout of the Cave Chronicles is totally reminiscent of Harvey Kurtzman, and I didn't even realize that until like people pointed that out. But I had always thought it was styled after Matt Groening's Life in Hell, but I'm sure he styled it after Harvey Kurtzman's Hey Look comics. So that was my like, Mad has been such a deep influence. Sergio's work, a lot of the parody stuff that Scott's was doing and Scott's been doing and all that stuff. It's all been a part of it. I'll show you a little bit of my single panel. Beep. Your sister had the baby. It's a boy. The exact moment radical black activist Thomas X realized that, yes, indeed, he was an Uncle Tom. Beep. What was promised? 40 acres and a mule. Beep. What was got? 40 ounces in a pit bull.
Oh, God.
Beep. This just in. Police have just released a description of the alleged gunman who's been terrorizing the downtown area. Beep. Please don't let it be a black guy. Beep, beep. Please don't let it be a Middle Eastern guy. Beep. Ha, they'll never catch me. Beep. Ah, the power of white privilege. This is weird to do all these beeps. Beep.
Beep.
The penis monologues with Will Chamberlain, Jimi Hendrix, and Milton Berle. How was it? Way, way too long. So you can see the bad influence in all this.
Terrible.
Beep. And this is the firing range where police officers do target practice. Beep. How come all the targets are black? What do you mean? They're silhouettes. They're supposed to be black. Beep. I'm talking about the afro and the FUBU logo across the chest. Well, I'll be. So yeah, just, my whole mode is tickle, tickle, punch, tickle, tickle, punch. That's the way I work. Beep. So this is a piece that I did for Mad. I think the most popular piece that I continually did for Mad were Father O'Flaherty's Hot Tub Confessions. And I essentially pitched this naked priest in a tub with a little choir boy. And it's completely, the gag is that it's completely legit. It's completely innocent. They're there to ask questions. But I had a lot of people that seem to still be in the news in the hot tub. Kanye West, Donald Trump, like all these folks in the hot tub. So but all the time people would always ask, is choir boy Timmy, is that supposed to be Father O'Flaherty's penis? Like, that was always the question. It is not his penis. It is a choir in there. That's it. Beep. So yeah. Oh, Ed Norton as the Hulk. Some of these I'm like, I was looking for the original art for them and I was just super excited to find it because I completely I pitched so many of them. I didn't know which ones that got the thumbs up. And then beep. This is a comic I made into a sticker. All Lives Matter, asterisk, restrictions apply. See skin color for details. And then beep. And sticking with the game piece that we saw earlier, I did this as a parody of a bunch of different games, but looked through a racial lens. And yeah. And all this stuff, I mean, all this stuff, if it wasn't for Mad Magazine, that was the thing. Mad really turned me, and also National Lampoon. I will say this. My mom worked, not my mom, my aunt, my great aunt worked as a lunch lady at Harvard. And she would bring home the Harvard Lampoon. And there was this one cover of the Harvard Lampoon that had a cartoon on it. And it was basically everybody sitting in class, and then a dog walks into class, and everyone just starts laughing and say, "There's a dog in class," hey! And everyone's laughing. And then the teacher goes, "Oh, forget it, class dismissed." So jump forward 45 years later, my mentor in Hollywood, Tom Gamble, invites me to a Simpsons reading, and he tells me that he worked for the Harvard Lampoon as a cartoonist. I said, "Oh man, I love the Harvard Lampoon, blah, 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 blah." You know, and I told him about that cover, and he said, "I drew that cover." So 45 years later, like, and I was just like, oh my god, like, talk about around the going all the way around. Beep, beep.
Next one.
So some of the stuff that I developed beyond my regular strips is I did the kids book series, Jake the Fake, and with Craig Robinson and Adam Mansbach, Craig Robinson, the comedian. So this is some animation that was done with the character I drew, and it got to be voiced by my son, who's I'm at his baseball tournament right now. And but it's his voice before he suddenly has this low voice. But it's great to look at that his this animated piece and hear his voice back then. Beep. So yeah, a few years ago, I got to develop my work into a television show, and with the help of Tom Gamble and just uh, uh, so many of my experiences with Mad actually helped me so much in the writers' room, because working with just the editors and sort of bringing ideas to them, and then them sending stuff and bouncing ideas off and going back and forth really helped me and prepared me for what I experienced in the writers' room writing a TV show. So it was a great experience. I'm just going to run quickly through these pictures. Beep. So this was us on the set. Look at that guy who's playing a cop. Look how mean he's looking. Look how mean he's getting. But it all is taken from my life and from my comics. Lamorne Morris, now an Emmy winner, played me, and Blake Anderson from Workaholics played my roommate Gunther. Beep. This is us on the set in Vancouver. T. Murph, this comedian on the right, was his first gig. Really amazing character actor and just really fun. Beep. Again, Lamorne Morris plays me, Emmy winner. Look at that kid way in the back. That's an extra right there. And just he seemed to be in every picture that I took that day. Beep. I have a secret cameo in both seasons. In the first season, I am dressed as a koala, and I got to punch my character in the face. And when I was doing it, I couldn't see anything, and the director goes, "Okay, koala." And I stepped forward, and I would take a punch, and then I heard one of the extras say, "I don't think he's ever thrown a punch in his life." And it's true. Okay, beep. So yeah, support each and every one of these cartoonists, because we don't work for Mad anymore. So I say, wherever you see any of these cartoonists, support their work. You can support me via Patreon, and yeah, that's my slideshow.
Thank you, Keith. Yes, definitely Patreon and Substack and whoever else has their work outside the graphic arts jungle, and trying to find out where we can be seen and appreciated in the general world. I hope everybody here appreciates the level of talent that we've been looking at, and what MAD has done for us as a culture, either as work that appeared in the publication or just carries on. And all these people are bringing it elsewhere. And of course, as they were influenced by MAD, newer, younger artists are being influenced by them. And I loved, Keith, how there was this lineage that was uncertain, like did a certain look or certain concept come from Will Eisner or Harvey Kurtzman, and do we get it second or third hand? And I do think that culture works that way. We get it fourth hand, fifth, the next generation coming up after us will get it fifth and sixth hand, and then with all kinds of additions. It's like a game of telephone, right? Where everybody takes the message and then adds a variation to it, and then that I tell my students that culture is like a big beehive. Leave a little, take a little. And so we're all learning from each other and growing as a result. I don't know how many people are on the line with us, or if anybody has questions. I'm asking Stephanie to forward any questions that anybody has, and either in chat or Stephanie, send them to me by text, because I got my texts going here. But in the meantime,
So we do have a couple of questions that
do?
have come up.
so let's prioritize them. You want to ask those questions?
Sure. Well, the first one is some of you, I wonder if you could describe the editorial process that our audience members wondering about. How did that work for you? And it might have been different for each one of you in terms of your interaction with Matt.
I'll start. I did a lot of topical pieces, and what I would find is I would get a call from Sam. It was great earlier to see Sam and John talking, because it really felt like old times. And it would have been great to have Nick around, because they would just give you the worst time. If you happen to go to the office or whatever, they would just one zinger after another. But what I would happen is there'd be this late breaking thing and which I didn't even know about. So I would get the job, I'd say yes, and then I would have to get on the internet and spend a lot of time just figuring out what they were even talking about, then getting up to speed on it. So that's what a lot of the process was. And for me, it was more just figuring out what the specific needs of the piece were, which might entail different solutions graphically or, technique wise. So and the idea of just getting a really tight pencil and get everything squared away, so there were no surprises at the end.
Thank
Anybody
you,
else
Scott.
Same.
want to contribute to that? Say that's all. You're just going to get away with same.
I mean, there
You
was
have a little story for us.
No, not too particularly. Just you'd get a call or an email from. Usually, Sam would reach out. Give me the assignment if I was available. The only one that kind of stands out was just we had a big blackout in New York in 2003, and I think I was like on the phone with Sam as he was giving me some assignment, as like everything just like went black and my phone shut off, and I was like trying to fax something. It was just that put a crimp in meeting the deadline, because now there was no way to communicate for a couple of days. But yeah, it was a pretty straightforward. And I'll just echo what Scott said. Like the being local was nice to just to go in to talk to the guys and just to deliver the finishes, or maybe even early on they would provide reference for like celebrities before you had to go look Google image, so you get like a little packet, and you had to make sure to return it all to Amy or she would kill you. But it was it was, and the fact that like you would walk in and Nick Megalin would see you and be like, oh, there's this effing guy. It warmed your heart to get cursed out.
Yeah.
Keith or Emily, any process?
Yeah, It was pretty straightforward. I would send in sort of like a batch of pitches for gags, and sort of get a yay or nay, maybe a couple notes. There was at least one instance where Sam reached out to me like to do some illustrations for a piece that was already written, and I did get to go to the offices a couple times, and it was honestly like wonderful. I should have hung out there a lot more for no real reason, just to soak up the atmosphere.
Keith, you have a story?
Yeah, for me, I only got to visit the offices once because I was across the country on the other side of the country, but I just like the idea of getting the feedback, the constant like back and forth, and watching it get better, work it and get better and better. I think mainly because I never actually worked with editors before like that. So that was really cool. And that was again, it was perfect for what I would endure as writing, 7 versions of a Hollywood script, a TV script. So that really helped.
Emily, something for you? So we would like I'm very interested in finding out about somebody mentioned that, I think it was you, Emily, that you said that this was a seminal part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe how and why it was, and anybody else want to jump in with something that helps us have a sense of how central MAD was to the your humor education and your art education?
I just remember looking at it and thinking like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to be a part of. This is the feeling I want to have all the time, and this is the feeling I want to be able to give other people someday. I mean, like it's something that like made my heart beat faster, and I knew it. Whatever it was, I wanted in. It was the same way that I felt about National Lampoon. It was the same way I felt when I saw Jeanine Garofalo do stand up like on MTV's Half Hour Comedy Hour. Like just this feeling of like, oh, this is for me.
Was it a feeling that this was shaking free of the rest of media in some way?
I mean, I don't know that I would have articulated that at age 7, but it definitely it felt so kind of like joyfully puckish, and it felt like whatever way it is these people go through the world, that's how I want to go through the world.
Cool. Ray, Keith, Scott.
Well, I mean, I think I covered my origins, but I just I think quick thing that stood out for me after having started working in MAD was a moment when I went up to the office to see Sam, and as I was waiting to talk to him, I noticed a pile of MADs on a desk on the side, and I went over to look at it, and I saw these were foreign editions, reprints, and I started thumbing through it, and so it was like a German issue, and it was some of my stuff, and I knew that MAD was published all over the world, but this was the first time it really hit me that they were distributing like the stuff we did, and it was now being reprinted in copies of MAD like around the world, and I was very excited, and Sam got off the phone, and I was like, oh my god, do I get paid more money for this? So after Sam stopped laughing, because this was all work for hire, like MAD could reprint it as much as they wanted, you don't get a dime. So a little disappointed about that, but then like the concept of, as an artist, that whatever stupid thing that I created is being seen by some 12-year-old kid in Germany was just kind of really cool. Like just knowing that like my work is out there on a level that I hadn't anticipated. So that was nice.
And that kid may start a magazine or start an animated series one day.
or start a fascist movement. I mean, it was Germany.
Well, we'll beat them to that, it seems.
Yeah.
Anybody else on this?
Yeah, I remember buying my first issue. I think it was the Clockwork Orange issue, and I just remember standing there on the sidewalk, and I remember all the pieces in it, and I still have it. And I just realized there's no going back. You know, this is what I've been looking for, because frankly, I wasn't really a comic book guy. I loved Mad because of, you know, the subversiveness and all that, and plus, you know, getting at a young age, you would always have to read up. You know, there were things you didn't understand, but in their concepts you wouldn't understand, but there were ways to approach it at different levels. You know, it might be spy versus spy or whatever, the nonverbal stuff, or just, I remember Al Jaffe, you know, a piece that just made total sense the way he would draw things, and everything was very logical. And the movie things later on, you started to, you know, you're never going to go see this R-rated movie, but you could read between the lines, and you learned a lot of stuff, you know, earlier than you would have otherwise. And it really opened so much, you know, that you could never go back.
Um,
I just want to comment.
yeah.
Again, it felt like my first dirty magazine. And
Yeah.
and
Right.
and also, and I say this all the time, Alfred E. Newman disturbed me to no end. Like Alfred E. Newman, and like reminded, like I would have nightmares, and Alfred E. Newman would be in it. Like I knew it was
He's
a
a
nightmare,
creepy-looking
and everything
character.
would be fine, and then Alfred E. Newman would show up, and then I'd be like, oh man, this is gonna go bad really fast. But
I thought that Alfred was what Ray Alma described the Thomas Nast Let Us Pray piece was like for me. A little too real, you know? It was moving be somewhere in between the idea of cartoon and reality, so that you were kind of thrown off balance in a way.
There's kind of a menacing aspect to his design. And
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever see, like, you know, Mad had the live action Mad movie Up the Academy that Gaines ended up hating and was actually pretty bad. There's clips of like they had like a live action Alfred that has a little cameo, and it's so disturbing. It's like an actor in makeup, and it's just
Well, that stupid thing with Fred Astaire dancing with Alfred E. Newman.
yeah.
So to me, very disturbing. I just, you know, it's going to be time to end it soon, but I see here also we have Sam Viviano on the line, and we have Dick DiBartolo on the line. And if you people have not passed out and you want to jump in, it would make such a difference to us. Sam is here. Look at Sam. And Judith Yaros Lee is here. So happy. Everybody here has contributed so much, and Sam was really our partner, Stephanie and my partner, in unlocking this show and making it happen. And it would not have been nearly as great without him. I'd like Sam, if you can unmute, please, and put aside your modesty for just a second and talk about seminal part of my life. I know you could write several books about it, but could you answer that question also?
What was the question?
The question is, can you put your finger on how and why it was a seminal part of your life? I don't mean as a person who worked for Mad, but when you were a kid and when you read it and how different it was for you than all of the media, what it was doing for you, because I think that's really a good way to end this show. The Mad Show is with the essence of it. What was the thing that was seminal for you in the beginning?
Funny pictures.
There's your intellectual answer.
I mean, I think that I was a nerdy kid, and I think that some, if not all, the people here can relate to that. I got into drawing. Yeah, I love to tell people that I started drawing at 3 years old, and at some point I realized, well, that's true of everybody on Earth. We all draw, and that's what's wonderful about it. We have no filter when we're that age. Nobody can tell us we can't draw. Nobody can tell us that we can't express ourselves. But the problem is that people get older and they get involved in other stuff, whether it's sports or maybe school or the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever it is. Me, I just kept drawing. And I had a lot of insight from an early age because my dad was an amateur artist and had started out with comics and he had little books he had drawn of Popeye and then later got into an adventure tale that he created, but it was also Popeye in the cartoons. And it was almost like incremental steps. My dad, the Fleischer Brother cartoons, then Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and then comic books. And when I got into comic books, there were broad ranges of stuff. It wasn't just superheroes. There was Archie comics, and there were Casper the Friendly Ghost, and even DC Comics had Jerry Lewis and Bob Hope and Fox and the Crow, and then into newspaper comic strips. I was very much into Little Abner and Buzz Sawyer. So Mad, while I was introduced very early on, when I did my essay, as it were, for the catalog, I said I first discovered Mad when I was about 6 years old in Linda Winnock's basement because her older brother Larry had a copy of Mad from 1958. And Mad was part of this whole mix. I was looking at Mad before I was reading it, so I was not entirely facetious to say funny drawings because I couldn't read it. I didn't understand it. And as I got older, I got more and more into the drawings. Now I was definitely moved originally by the more Drucker stuff, the caricatures, the movie stuff, the TV stuff. Um, but it was the whole mix: the Don Martin, the Al Jaffe, the Paul Coker, and so this kind of kept me going as I got into school. Even in grade school, I was already drawing caricatures of teachers and classmates because that's what I saw in Mad. Um, in high school, it kind of blossomed that uh, whenever I wasn't interested in what was going on in the class, I could always draw the teacher making a fool of himself. So, the seminal influence on me was that in a certain sense, it was always there. And while there was a point in high school, in early high school especially, that I thought I wanted to do superheroes because that was beginning to be the burgeoning thing. When I visited DC Comics twice as a teenager. First, I met Carmine Infantino and Neil Adams. But then when I was 16, I went back again. I met Dick Giordano. And he was looking at my stuff. And it was Batman and the Flash and my own superheroes. And he said, "You should be drawing funny." Because he saw what I was doing, no matter how much I wanted to make it look like standard superhero stuff, that there was an underlying sense of humor to it that went in a different direction. And I have always appreciated the fact that he saw this in a 16-year-old kid, that it wasn't the surface drawing, it was the sensibility behind it. And so for me, it was realizing at some point that sensibility synced up with Mad. And that's true of a lot of people, but in people like you, Steve, you went in a different direction.
But
People like
I just want to say, you evoke something in me because when I was 11, when I was 9, they pulled me out of New York City public schools because my parents were divorced. My mother worked all day and they needed a place to put me. And somebody had the bright idea of putting me in an Orthodox religious school, which was 7:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night in the afternoon. And I drew those rabbis. Boy, I gave them, it was like I was using everything Al Jaffe gave me to draw these. And these were the first caricatures I ever drew. They were very disrespectful. The rabbis never saw them, but I still have them someplace. And these are the first, like, he's 9, he's 10 years old. And you just mentioned this, and it occurs to me now. It was Mad. It was Mad that gave me permission. It was the permission structure to parody these people.
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there, in that we all collected Mad, and in my case, along with other comic books, but there seemed to be a key there, that, you know, we all thought this is our own little secret, that it told us things that we weren't supposed to know, but as you said, it also gave us permission to follow that lead.
These were grown-up people doing this,
Yeah.
making a living. It's going to be time to say goodbye, but before we do, I want to hear from Judith. Judith, welcome. Could you just speak to this for a few minutes? Seminal part of my life. Did you have an experience like this with Mad at some point when you were younger? You're muted. I'm sorry.
Thought I had just unmuted. Of course I did. Of course I went in a different direction altogether, but
Lucky you.
now for something completely different. But I think this has been a tremendously valuable opportunity for me to hear from this, you know, from the horse's mouths, so to speak, your experience of dealing with the editorial process, which of course mostly I had to infer through research. I must say, Keith, that I saw the Harvey Kurtzman in your work right away. Maybe he's been on my mind. What's interesting to me as I listen to you is one of the things I talked about last night was the two different routes of Mad influence. One is contagion, where you see it, you want to do it. It seems like that was really the spark for all of you, that you had this contagion of Mad's permission structure, of its sense of humor, of its opportunity to see the world through a jaundiced eye, to take illustration, which is so often a faithful representation with some kind of interpretation, and then just really warp it to bring in your own worldview or really a distaff view. But then the other route is the one that Keith mentioned so interestingly, which is then you have these interpersonal connections that are, and Peter Cooper talked about this earlier, you know, his interaction with Norman Rockwell or Sam, when you were talking with the people at DC Comics, and they, you know, they encouraged you to see your sense of humor, they encouraged you to develop it. The interpersonal relationships, what I call the network effect of interpersonal relationships, is also, I think, quite salient. And it seems to me that's what all of you who are talking about your work for hire, and I feel you. As an academic, I almost never get paid for anything I do. Even when I publish something, somebody else holds the copyright. So that's it. So I feel for you. But the, oh, I lost my train of thought here. Through that, those interpersonal relationships, you begin to develop yet another line of influence that moves forward. And so when Peter Cooper's talking about how his work he's selling at Comic-Con, and you're talking, Ray and Scott, about selling your work to people, you know, that's, you also have a relationship with them, and that kind of relationship is also happening between the editors and the artists, and between the editors and the writers. And that interpersonal connection, which I also think you can trace from the writers who went to the Carol Burnett show, Get Smart, and so on. I mean, that interpersonal connection is also then extending the line of influence outward. And I think in your role as teachers, Steve and Peter and the rest of you who teach, you know, you're also extending your sense of humor and what you value in comic art. You're moving that forward to your students. So that's my thought.
Okay.
I tell a little story that is related in a sense to what Judith's pointing out.
We're gonna hear your story, and then maybe one more comment, and then we're gonna say good afternoon. Okay.
last night I was not able to participate or even tune in because I was at the New York Comic Con. I had been asked to present a Hall of Fame award to Sergio Aragonés, who was not present, but thanked in pre-recorded video. But somebody else who was in the Hall of Fame there is a fellow named Larry Hama, who I have crossed paths with actually 40 years ago. And he'd been in the comic book business for most of his life, although for a period he actually edited Crazy, which was Marvel Comics' Mad Imitator. But he was telling a story that when he was a teenager, he went not only to the Mad offices, but also to meet Harvey Kurtzman when he was doing Help magazine, which was published by Jim Warren. And he said it was this tiny little office, and they had this really cute receptionist who turned out to be Gloria Steinem, and a gopher in the office who was a guy named Terry Gilliam. And
Talked about that last night.
did you? Okay. Well, one of Terry Gilliam's jobs, because Harvey was a pioneer in doing fumetti, photo comics, and Terry was kind of charged to go out and find people to be in these fumettis, like comedians and stuff. And he went, and there was a couple of British comedians doing something. I don't know if it was Broadway, off Broadway, or something. He said, "How'd you like to be in a photo funny?" And the one guy said, "Sure." His name was John Cleese. And obviously these two guys hit it off, and eventually Monty Python.
That was
So
actually one of the examples of the network effect that I gave last night.
that's why I made me want to tell the stories, because I mean, I knew the bones of the story before, but it never quite hit me before last night that Harvey Kurtzman was responsible for Monty Python.
You bet.
So, you
This
know,
is why
yeah.
it's good. That's why it's good to have publications. That's why it's good to have cities. You know, the virtue of a city is where all these people gather together at
Yeah.
parties. They introduce each other to each other and to others, and one thing leads to another. And you never know how something like Monty Python could happen, which is something, a whole different chapter of satire that could stand itself another show at the Norman Rockwell Museum or someplace else. Anyway, does anybody want to say one last word before we say goodbye?
I want to say thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you to the Rockwell Museum, Steve, Sam, for putting all this together. Thanks to Mad Magazine for warping my life and others. Oh, special shout out to superfan Doug Guilford, who's
Yes, Doug.
he was able to he's
Yes.
able to scan some of my pieces that I couldn't find. So thank you, Doug.
And we want to thank Doug, and we want to thank all of you for just your exceptional participation, which has really made everything possible and so joyful and so interesting. And thank you to our audience who has really been with us on this beautiful day outside to enjoy and learn from all of these incredible commentators. So just want to let you know that my colleague Rich Bradway will be placing all these proceedings online in approximately a week. So you can find that on our website at nrm.org and also on YouTube. So you'll be on YouTube forever, and that's a wonderful thing. So we
Please
thank
no, please no. I want to thank Stephanie. It was a whole lot of people, and she was the general. We were the troops. She led us over the bridge, through the swamps, and we took the town. And
very calmly too.
like she's done it before, and she'll do it again. We're grateful to you, Stephanie. You are A1 total pro.
It's
Thank
such an
you.
honor, and I am thankful to all of you. And Steve, beautiful work. What a great partnership. And you too, Sam.
All worked. All
It's
worked
been
well.
amazing. Each one of you has contributed so much. So very grateful.
Very
So
good.
have a great day, everybody, what's left of it. And we thank you again for your incredible contributions.